Hi, I'm Jackie, a 24-year-old marketing specialist working in downtown Chicago. Trust me, what I'm about to tell you is a perfect example of why you should never ignore your gut feelings about people. Jackie, Bob is different. He makes me feel alive again. My mom gushed, her eyes sparkling as she reminisced about meeting him at a chair auction 3 years ago. I forced a smile, but something felt off right from the start. Your mom seems really happy, though, Martha said as we sipped coffee at our favorite cafe. Maybe give him a chance. I'm trying, I admitted. But every time I see them together, he's always there, hovering. Over time, the signs piled up. Mom stopped making decisions on her own. First, her spontaneous lunch visits to my office stopped. Then, even her infectious laugh seemed to fade. Oh, honey, I'll have to check with Bob about investing in your business idea. He handles our finances now, she said casually one day. That wasn't my mom speaking. The Linda Mitchell I knew was independent, bold, the woman who built her real estate empire from scratch. Did your mom just say Bob manages the accounts now? Martha's eyebrows shot up when I told her. Yeah. And get this, she had to ask his permission to buy a new car. Her old one's falling apart. Then came the phone call from Thomas, my mom's business partner. Jackie, your mother just signed over partial control of the agency to Bob. She didn't even read the paperwork. I confronted her over dinner. Since when do you not read contracts? I demanded. Bob knows what he's doing, sweetie, Mom said softly. He has an MBA. Mom, so do thousands of people. That doesn't mean. That's enough, Jackie, Bob cut in coldly, his voice slicing through the air. Your mother trusts my judgment. Maybe you should too. Mom shrank into her chair, avoiding my gaze. 3 years ago, she would have stood her ground. Now she just folded. Little did I know, watching her fade into a shadow of herself was only the beginning. Then came the night everything changed. Miss Mitchell, this is Mercy Hospital. Your mother's been in a serious accident. Those words hit me like a freight train. By 2 a.m., I was at the hospital, still in my pajamas. Bob was already there, huddled with a lawyer I didn't recognize. She's in a coma, the doctor explained. The next 48 hours are critical. I'll handle everything, Bob interjected, shoving a stack of papers at the doctor. I have medical power of attorney. Since when? I demanded. Your mother signed it last month, he said smoothly, along with some other necessary documents. I felt a wave of nausea. Mom wouldn't have done this without telling me. He's lying, Martha insisted when I called her. Mike's cousin works at the courthouse. We'll check the documents first thing tomorrow. But Bob moved faster than any of us expected. By morning, he had frozen all of Mom's accounts, including the joint ones I had access to. You can't lock me out of everything. I confronted him in the hospital hallway. Actually, I can, he replied, his tone icy. And if you cause trouble, he glanced toward Mom's room. Premium medical care is expensive. It would be a shame if we had to move her somewhere more affordable. That's when his sister Karen appeared, dripping with fake sympathy and flaunting her designer handbag. Sweetie, you're just upset, she cooed. Bob's doing what's best for everyone. Oh, and about your old room, we'll need it cleared out. The house is being listed tomorrow. What? That's my childhood home. Was, Karen corrected, smirking. The new deed shows different ownership. Devastated, I called Thomas. They're selling everything, I sobbed. Give me an hour, he said. I've been keeping records. When I met Thomas at his office, my hands shook as he laid out the evidence. Look at these property transfers, he said grimly. All perfectly legal on paper. But the timing, something didn't add up. These transfers were backdated, Thomas said, his voice grim. Bob's been planning this for months. And Jackie, he's done this before. Mike burst in, waving his phone. I found something. 3 other women, 3 other cities, same pattern. Marry, accident, assets vanish. Did he get caught? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Mike shook his head. No, the women either died or gave up fighting. I felt the walls closing in. Every lawyer I called hit the same roadblock. Everything looked perfectly legal. The documents are too clean, one attorney admitted, almost like they were prepared well in advance. Martha helped me document everything while I camped out at Mom's bedside. Every conversation, every threat, every suspicious visitor. I recorded it all. You don't want to do this, Jackie, Bob warned one night, his tone as cold as the hospital's fluorescent lights. I've dealt with troublemakers before. Is that what happened to the others? I shot back. Were they troublemakers too? His face changed, a flicker of menace crossing his features. I don't know what you think you know. I know enough. Then you know I always win. Always. He leaned closer, his voice a venomous whisper. By the way, your mother's insurance might not cover extended care. Shame if she had to be moved to state facilities. Helpless, I watched movers empty our family home. Karen oversaw everything, making sure every valuable disappeared into storage. I left with one box of clothes and my laptop. But what they didn't know was that hidden inside my laptop were copies of every document, every transaction, and every piece of evidence Thomas and Mike had uncovered. Bob thought he'd won, his biggest mistake, leaving me alive and angry. Unlike his other victims, I wasn't going to disappear quietly. The money's moving through shell companies, Thomas explained, spreading out documents across his desk. Look at these timestamps, transfers at midnight. Like clockwork. Late nights in Thomas's office became my new normal. That's where I met Diana. She stumbled in one rainy evening, looking exhausted. I saw your posts in the fraud victim forums, she said softly. Bob Turner, he did the same thing to my aunt. Did she make it? I asked. She shook her head, tears pooling in her eyes. No, complications from her injuries right after he drained her accounts. Then came the breakthrough. Mike burst into Thomas's office, breathless. You won't believe what Karen let slip at happy hour. What? She was drunk, bragging about vacation homes in the Caymans, multiple properties, all bought within days of Bob's previous wife's accident. That's when I started recording every interaction with Bob. Sign these transfer papers for the agency, he demanded one night. Why the rush? Market's hot. Strike while the iron's. Don't be difficult, Jackie. Remember who controls your mother's care. He didn't notice the tiny camera hidden in my jacket button, capturing every threat. His entire empire is built on fraud, Thomas revealed after weeks of digging. Tax evasion, insurance scams, identity theft. Then came the moment that changed everything. I was sitting by Mom's bedside, holding her hand when I felt it. Her fingers twitched. Then she squeezed my hand, faint but unmistakable. She's waking up, I cried. I called Martha immediately. Block the door, I said. Mike's voice cut through the phone. Bob's heading up with some lawyer. Move fast. Through the hospital window, we watched Bob pacing the hallway, making frantic calls. Move everything. By the time Bob realized what was happening, it was already too late. The dominoes were falling. I don't care about the fees, I told Thomas. She can't wake up to empty accounts. Mom's recovery came with a fierce clarity. Her first coherent words stopped Bob in his tracks. Where's my checkbook? She demanded, her voice stronger than it had been in years. You're confused, dear. Rest, Bob tried, his tone saccharine. The hell I am. Jackie, why can't I access my accounts? That's when the FBI walked in. Bob Turner, we have some questions about your offshore holdings. And Miss Turner, an agent added, turning to Karen, your real estate license is suspended pending investigation. Diana arrived with 5 other victims' families. Their testimonies stretch over 3 days, painting a damning picture of Bob's calculated schemes. Mike's updates came like clockwork. He's on every airport watch list, he reported. Border Patrol caught him trying to cross into Canada. The trial was swift. Bob's meticulous paper trail sealed his fate. 20 years, the judge announced, and full restitution to the victims. Mom recovered fully, throwing herself into rebuilding her business with a renewed vigor. I launched my own marketing firm specializing in fraud prevention campaigns, turning our nightmare into a mission to protect others. 1 year later, I visited Bob in prison. He looked smaller, pathetic in his orange jumpsuit. Jackie, please, he begged. I'm sorry. I'll make it right. Like you did for Diana's aunt? Or the others? I asked, my voice steady. I've changed. Save it, I snapped. I just came to say one thing. I won. And you'll never hurt another family again. His desperate pleas followed me as I walked away, but I didn't look back. How'd it go? Mom asked later. Exactly as planned, I said, smiling. He's got 19 more years to think about his choices. Sometimes justice comes from simply refusing to stay quiet. Have you ever faced a situation where someone close to you revealed their true colors, but others told you to give them a chance? Or maybe insisted you were just being paranoid? How did you handle that gut feeling when something wasn't right? My story is a testament to the danger of ignoring red flags. Looking back, the signs were there: the controlling behavior, the isolation, the subtle threats. But society often pressures us to keep the peace or make it work, especially when it involves family. So what's more dangerous? A stranger who means us harm or someone who gains our trust and manipulates us? Should we always trust our instincts, or are there times when we're being too suspicious? Share your experiences in the comments below. Let's start a conversation about trusting our gut and protecting ourselves and those we love. Hi everyone, I'm Amanda. Have you ever imagined that the life you built with care could unravel completely? That's where my story begins, my friend. But before I dive into the madness, please like and subscribe to hear more about how I survived living with my husband's psychotic twin sister. What I'm about to share may sound unbelievable, but I promise, every word is true. 6 months ago, my life was perfect. I had a successful interior design studio, a gorgeous home, and a loving husband, Mark. We met when I redesigned the showroom for his luxury car dealership. Unlike other wealthy clients, Mark was humble, kind, and genuinely fascinated by my creative vision. After a whirlwind romance, we tied the knot in an intimate ceremony. Life felt like a dream until she arrived. "Your sister's here," Mark announced one rainy evening. I looked up from my design sketches to see Samantha, his twin sister, standing in the doorway with 3 massive suitcases. I lost my job. "I can't be alone right now," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. The depression. "It's getting worse." How could we say no? Mark immediately offered her our guest room. That first night, I heard her wandering the halls at 3 a.m., stopping just outside our bedroom door. At first, her presence seemed harmless, but soon strange things began happening. "I come home to find the furniture rearranged. Mark likes the sofa facing east," she said with an unsettling smile. "We always had it this way growing up." My assistant Emily was the first to voice concern. "The way she stares at him during client meetings, it's not normal," she whispered. Even Mark's secretary, Patricia, pulled me aside. "Be careful," she warned. "Samantha's different when you're not around." It all escalated quickly. My design books disappeared. Family photos were replaced with childhood pictures of the twins. "Your taste is so nouveau," Samantha scoffed over dinner. "Mark deserves better." Mark just laughed it off. "She's protective," he said. "Twins are like that." The breaking point came on our wedding anniversary. I spent hours preparing Mark's favorite meal, only for Samantha to interrupt. "Remember when I used to make this for you? Before she came along?" She smiled sweetly. "It was just us. We didn't need anyone else." Later that evening, Mark canceled our anniversary trip. "Samantha needs us right now," he said, as I watched her reflection in the window, smiling. That night, I found her in my closet wearing my wedding veil. "He only married you because I wasn't there to stop it," she whispered. "But I'm here now." Looking back, I should have seen the signs. But how could I have known letting her into our home would start my worst nightmare? Soon, Samantha's manipulation turned financial. She showed Mark our credit card statement, her voice dripping with fake concern. "Do you know how much she spent on throw pillows last month?" "It's for a new client's lake house staging," I explained, but Samantha cut me off. $3,000, Mark. She's bleeding you dry." That night, Mark revoked my business credit card. "Just until we sort the expenses," he said, but I knew this was Samantha's doing. The next day, a woman appeared at my studio. "I'm Margaret, Mark's ex-wife. We need to talk." Over coffee, she revealed a chilling truth. Samantha had destroyed their marriage too. She'd stand outside our bedroom at night, watching us sleep. Margaret said, "When I told Mark, he said I was paranoid." Margaret showed me photos of her old home. The decorations were eerily identical to what Samantha had done in ours. Same poses, same angles. Everything came to a head during Sunday dinner. Samantha burst into tears. "She's stealing everything, Mark. Our recipes, our traditions, our bond." She clung to him dramatically. "I can't sleep in that guest room anymore. The anxiety." Samantha suggested I sleep in the kitchen's daybed. Just for a few nights, Mark said. That night, as I shivered under thin blankets, I heard them upstairs, laughing like teenagers. Rachel, Mark's former fiancée, found me the next day. She'll start wearing his clothes next, she warned. I thought she was exaggerating, until I came home early to find Samantha in Mark's office, wearing his Letterman jacket. We were supposed to be together forever, she whispered, her back to me. No one loves him like I do. Then came the final straw. Late one night, unable to bear the cold kitchen, I crept upstairs for another blanket. I noticed a light on in my walk-in closet. Samantha stood there, wearing my wedding dress, the veil covering her face. Do you think he'll notice if I take your place? She asked, lifting the veil to reveal her wild, unhinged smile. After all, she said, we already share the same face. I backed away, my heart pounding. This wasn't just jealousy or possessiveness. It was something far darker. Samantha wasn't just a nuisance anymore. She was a danger, and I was trapped in the middle of her spiraling obsession. The next day, Emily burst into my office, looking worried. Mrs. Carter canceled her contract. That's the third client this week, she said, placing another cancellation notice on my desk. I didn't need to ask why. Samantha had been calling my clients, spinning tales about how I was a gold digger who married Mark for his dealership money. But that was just the beginning. You need to see this, Patricia whispered during a secret lunch meeting. She handed me a folder. Inside were denied partnership contracts and failed business deals, all from the periods when Samantha had lived with Mark. She convinced him to back out of a multi-million-dollar expansion, Patricia said. Said it was too risky. Emily had also been documenting Samantha's behavior in chilling detail. Security cameras caught her following Mark to meetings, watching him from her car for hours. She even called the bank, pretending to be me, trying to access our accounts. Margaret took it further, organizing a meeting at her house. A support group of sorts. 5 women were there, all connected to Mark's past, their lives in ruins because of Samantha. She made Mark fire my entire design team when we were engaged, Rachel revealed. Said they were trying to seduce him. I found her sleeping in our bed whenever I worked late, Margaret added, wearing my nightgown. Then Patricia uncovered something shocking. During her research, she found Samantha's old medical records. She was institutionalized at 16, Patricia whispered, diagnosed with erotomania and an obsessive fixation on Mark. Their parents covered it up. But nothing prepared me for the shrine. While Samantha was at therapy, I discovered a hidden room in the basement. The walls were plastered with photos of Mark at every stage of his life. Business cards, coffee cups, scraps of old clothing, even bandages stained with his blood from childhood injuries. In the center of the room was a replica of their childhood bedroom, recreated in perfect detail. What horrified me most were the newer photos, hundreds of them. Samantha had been watching us, capturing Mark at work, at lunch, even in our bedroom. In many of the pictures, she'd pasted her face over mine. The final straw came during an important client call. Mr. West, you just called an hour ago to cancel the project. The client said, sounding confused. You said your wife was mentally unstable and that I should avoid working with her. My blood ran cold. Samantha wasn't just impersonating me, she was becoming Mark. That night, I overheard her in Mark's office, speaking into the phone. Her voice mimicked his perfectly. The merger papers are ready, she said. Transfer everything to the secondary account. My wife doesn't need to know. I recorded everything, my hands trembling. With Emily and Patricia's help, we traced the account. It was in Samantha's name. She wasn't just sabotaging my career, she was systematically dismantling our lives. She's made him dependent on her, Margaret warned at our next meeting, just like she did with all of us. The other women nodded in agreement. One had lost her business, another her reputation, all because they had gotten too close to Mark. Later that night, I found a photo album on my desk. Inside were pictures of Mark's exes, all involved in suspicious accidents or unexplained incidents. The last page held a recent photo of me, crossing the street, taken from someone's car. Scrawled across it in Samantha's handwriting were the words, "Twins belong together forever." I locked my office door, my hands trembling, and called Emily. We have to move fast, I whispered. Samantha wasn't just trying to separate us anymore. She wanted me gone. I stood at the podium, presenting my designs for actress Morgan Blake's new coastal mansion. The room buzzed with anticipation, packed with media, industry leaders, and potential clients. This was my moment, a chance to rebuild everything Samantha had tried to destroy. These color palettes represent the merging of coastal serenity with modern luxury, I began confidently. Liar. The word rang out like a gunshot. The doors burst open, and Samantha strode in, wearing a suit identical to Mark's. Gasps rippled through the room as she stormed toward the stage, her heels clicking with ominous precision. "She's trying to steal my soulmate," Samantha shouted, her voice high and unhinged. "Mark and I are meant to be together. We shared a womb." The room fell silent. Morgan Blake's jaw dropped, and I froze, clutching the edge of the podium. "Tell them, Mark," Samantha shrieked, scanning the crowd wildly. "Tell them how we're two halves of one soul." Her voice cracked with desperation, and for a moment, all I could hear was my pounding heartbeat. Then Margaret stood up. "No," she said firmly, her voice cutting through the tension. "We've heard enough." Rachel rose next, then another woman, and another. One by one, Samantha's past victims stood, their faces filled with anger and resolve. "She tried to poison my coffee," Margaret announced, her voice trembling but determined. "She staged a break-in at my office," Rachel added. More stories poured out, years of manipulation, sabotage, and obsession laid bare before Mark's business partners and the press. Samantha's eyes darted frantically between the women, her composure unraveling. "You'll never separate us," she screamed, lunging at me with fingers curved like claws. Security rushed in, grabbing her before she could reach me. As they dragged her away, she locked eyes with Mark. "If I can't have you, no one will," she hissed. "We'll die together, just like we were born together." Something shifted in Mark's expression at that moment. The spell Samantha had cast over him shattered. Later that night, Samantha's childhood therapist called. "She's had this fixation since they were 12, the therapist explained. "She pretend to be Mark, date his girlfriends, then destroy their lives. Your case triggered her worst episode yet." The police found Samantha in our bedroom that night. She had recreated their birth scene with dolls, surrounded by lit candles and empty pill bottles. Her suicide note read, "Twins entered the world together. They should leave it together, too." She was taken away in handcuffs, screaming about eternal twin bonds. Mark lost everything. His business partners pulled out, citing poor judgment and enabling dangerous behavior. He sent me letters, begging for forgiveness. "I was blind," one read. "She was my twin, my other half. I couldn't see the monster she'd become." But I never responded. Instead, I poured myself into my work. Within a year, my design firm expanded to 3 cities. Magazine covers called me the Phoenix designer, risen from the ashes of tragedy. Today, as I cut the ribbon on my new design center, the crowd cheers. This is my story, a story of survival, rebuilding, and triumph over darkness. Emily nudges me. "Look," she whispers, pointing across the street. A police car is parked there. Samantha sits in the back, on her way back to the institution after another failed competency hearing. She's still wearing clothes identical to Mark's, her lips moving silently. Our eyes meet through the window, and she presses her hand against the glass. I can't hear her, but I don't need to. I know she's still living in her twisted fantasy. This morning, Mark sent roses with a note. "I miss us. Please come home." I dropped them in the trash. Some bonds, once broken, should stay that way. Some homes, once poisoned, can never be lived in again. The ribbon falls, cameras flash, and I smile, knowing I'm finally free of the twin who tried to erase me. They say twins share everything. But some things, sanity, love, and freedom, are meant to be individual. I learned that the hard way. What would you do if you discovered your spouse's twin was recreating your wedding photos and wearing your clothes? Would you confront them immediately, gather evidence, or run for your life? Share your thoughts in the comments below.